So today we're going to be talking about how to make offerings on an altar. Having an altar not necessarily means that it should be in a monastery or temple. It is recommended to have an altar in every home. And the reason is it is a purpose for us to use that environment or use that space for our spiritual practices. Also, it is a reminder for us of the vows that we have taken, such as the Bodhisattva vows, or as a Buddhist, you hold certain principles to, so the altar setup is a place where we could make offerings, do our meditation, make our prayers, and so on. So therefore, it's very important for us to have an altar at home. Now, having an altar at home, there is no specific, guidelines of the size or how big it should be. But nevertheless, it can vary from home to home, depending on your space at home and also depending on your situation at home. Here today we are doing this recording in my personal home here in Elista, Kälmykia. I do have a place in the US, and also I have a temporarily, since I'm staying in Moscow, my apartment also has an altar which is not as big as this one. So the main thing is to find the right space. It is recommended that you don't have set up the altar in your bedroom. That is because, the area that you want to have the altar should be in a very clean environment or at the cleanest possible place in your room. Most importantly, the altar should be set up with respect to the holy images that will be placed on the altar. So therefore, it is important that you find a place where it is considered the most cleanest area in your home. So for example, like in the sitting room or living room, this is where you would set up the altar. Try to set it up far away from your toilet or from your kitchen. And again, it is not recommended to have the altar in your bedroom, but sometimes due to space and circumstances, sometimes you don't have a choice other than to set it up in your bedroom, but that is okay. So the main thing is to have the area very clean and have it set up in a very respectful environment. And as you can see here, I have set it up in my kind of sitting room or living room area. I personally do my practices in this particular room. It's very rare that I engage with the people here. I get very few visitors at home. Most of the visits, most of the people that come to visit me, they come to visit me at my office at the Hurul. So therefore this, due to the limited visitors that I get at home, I'm able to use this space more as a shrine room for me or a meditation room for me. So therefore I have taken advantage of this room, and we are going to be speaking about how to set up a altar and how we do the offerings as well. During the offerings later today, I'm going to do two types of offerings. And again, it is for you to decide how to do it and how you would like to do it depending on your situation. So here on my particular altar, I have the main image, the Buddha statue here. The Buddha statue should always be centered. And because he is the central focus point of our altar, and as a Buddhist we take refuge in the Buddha. So therefore, we put the image of the Buddha in the center. Along with that, on the left and right sides, there is no particular rule which particular deity or which particular statue or which particular portrait to put left or right. But in my case here, I have set up other statues. Here we have the Avalokiteshvara, we have the green Tara, we have the white Tara, I have the medicine Buddha, and again here I have another Buddha statue, Amitayus, also I have another statue of the Avalokiteshvara, and so on. When you're setting up an altar, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should have statues. Having simple portraits, for example, like this one, this is a very simple Buddha portrait, which I got it framed, and other particular deities which I don't have statues, but I have them I have their portraits framed as well. So it can be, if you have both, it's good. If not, it's okay. If you don't have the statues, it's okay to have, it's okay to have portraits, or you could do both, So therefore, this is how I kind of have it set up. Here, we have the big tanka here. Again, in the centered point, we have the Buddha statue. And all across here, we have the great Buddhist masters, the great 17 Pandits of Nalanda monastic institution. On the altar, as we take refuge to the Buddha, Dharma meaning the teachings, Sangha, and the Sangha. So, and also we are making offerings to the Buddha body, speech, and mind as well. So the statue itself would represent the Buddha's body. Then we have Buddha textbooks, which is the teachings of Buddha. Here I have a small collection of the books that I use occasionally. So here, all of these represents the teachings that Buddha has given. So therefore, these are the textbooks. I have textbooks in Tibetan and English, and also in Russian as well. So the textbook, it doesn't necessarily have to be in Tibetan, but it can be in any other language that you use. So as long as on your altar that you have the Buddha statue, which represents the body, the teaching, the scriptures that represent the teachings of Buddha, which is the Buddha's speech. Then on here we have the stupa. Here I have a few different sizes of stupa, and here this represents the Buddha's mind. So therefore, on the altar, it is recommended that you have a representation of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. Here we have lamps. Lamps, this is also as a form of offering. Here I really like these lamps because they come in a form of lotus, different colors. So we make this as a light and lotus offering to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, to the Dharma protectors, and so on. So this is just to give you a very generic idea of my humble and simple altar at home. Of course, I do have plans to make it a little bit more, elaborate. But for the time being, this is how I have my altar set up. Back in the earlier days, it was much more simpler than this and much more smaller. But over the time, some of these statues I personally have bought, some of them were also offered to me. So therefore, my altar kind of slowly grew over time, and also hopefully in the future that I will be able to make a nice altar as an offering to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so on. So today we're going to talk about how to make offerings. We're going to make offerings. These are what we call offering bowls. These offering bowls usually come in gold-plated, silver, bronze, and other types of metal. But in this case, these are stainless steel bowls, very light, very easy to use, and the offering bowls usually come in a set of 7. And the reason that it comes in 7 is because it symbolizes when Buddha was born, he took 7 steps. So therefore it represents Buddha's 7 steps, and also it represents the achievement of the 7 limb practices, so as well as that. So there's 2 particular meanings there. So therefore here today I'm going to kind of show you how I usually do it. Of course, I'm not here in Elista every day, but the days that I'm here, this is how I usually do it. And again, I make it very clear that the offerings is not, I don't get to do it every day, but I try to do it as much as possible. But nevertheless, there's always some type of offering that is on the altar at all times. So when we are making the offerings, first and foremost is to have the area very clean, to be free from any garbage or dust and so on. That is a sign of purifying one's negative karma. So it is very important to at least clean the area. Also in the altar area, we want to be dust free, very clean. So we can always get a rag and clean the area. Here we use this pot for offerings only. I don't use this for other purposes. So we try to dedicate one particular pot, or it could be a water jug or whatever, for the sole purposes of using it for offerings. The reason that we don't use it for personal and also for offering is not to contaminate the offerings that you are about to make. And here, sometimes in here we have plain water, but what I do is I soak some saffron in water, and I will add just a little bit. And here, the very first step is we pour a little bit into the offering bowl. As we are making the offering, you always start from your left side. As you're looking towards the altar, you make the offering starting from the left side, going towards the right. And if you're looking from the Buddha's side, from the statue side, it would be starting from the Buddha's right hand side. So here we have water in here. We're going to pour most of the water in, and we're going to leave a little bit water inside. Then we're going to line this up. So the reason that we do that is any offering bowls, any offering containers that you put on the altar should never be empty. They should always have something in it. So that is for auspicious reasons. So therefore, we are going to line them up. Now, when we are lining these up, they should not be touching. That's not allowed. Nor they should be too far away. That is not. So the space between these two bowls should be the size of a grain right here. So we try to line them up just like that. And at the same time, while you're making these offerings, you can recite the mantra Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. So as you can see here, we have a little bit of water inside each bowl, not leaving them completely empty. Then we get the water pot, and when we make the offering, we want to be respectful. So therefore, we never pour it like with one hand. We always do with two hands as a sign of respect, reverent to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So while you're making this offering, you could be reciting any type of prayer or any type of mantra. But what you're visualizing is you're making these water offerings. The saffron water symbolizes nectar. So you're making offerings of nectar water to the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. And also at the same time, you have you can have images of your root gurus. Here in my case, I have a portrait of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and so therefore I visualize making these offerings to all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and so on. So therefore, while we're doing this, we try not to pollute the offerings. So we try not to speak. But in this case, I'm doing the recording, so therefore I'm kind of having to speak. But we make this offering, and again, we make this with respectful manner. So you kind of bow a little bit, then you make the offerings. Starting with the very narrow, then you go a little bit heavy, then you end up like that. So you don't want to fill it all the way, overflow. That is considered a bad omen. Nor do you want to have it too less in it. So therefore you will want to So in my case, I ran out of water, which is okay. I can always go back and get it. Sometimes the container is big, sometimes it is small, so we can get more water. So the thing is that when we are making these offerings, as I said, we visualize that we are in the presence of all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, your root gurus. They are presently here, and here that you are making this offering to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as well as your root gurus. This water bowl offering is usually done in the morning. So the offering water that we make, I usually recommend that we use the very first tap water from the kitchen that we are going to use. That is a sign of like the very first, water of the day is offered to the on the altar, not leftovers. So you want to do the very first one to the for the offering purposes. So therefore here we'll finish off. So as we make the offerings of the water bowl offerings, then the next step I usually do is light incense, offering of good smell. So the incense, here I'm doing 2 incense sticks. It doesn't necessarily have to be 2. It could be 1. It could be 3. Whatever your preference is. I do 2 only because the room is a very big room. So I light the incense and I purify with the offering of good smell. And again, I recite the mantra Om Om.
Shoraya Buddhi Sadvaya Maha Sadvaya Maha Karunikaya Daya Ta Om Tara Tara Tiri Tiri Turu Turu Iti We Iti Jare Jare Pura Jare Pura Jare Usume
And the next step that I do is I always light a candle. So here I would like to, I make the candle offering. Usually this is for a butter lamp purposes, but nowadays we using candle as a replacement of the butter lamp. But nevertheless, I mean, butter lamp is still used, but in this age and time, we become a little bit too lazy and a little bit too lack of effort that we put in. So we use the candle. So then after this, after making the offerings, then you can make the prostrations and you can begin your daily practice. Meditation, morning sadhana prayers, or whatever practices that you do, you can begin after you make the offerings. And many of the traditional Buddhist homes, it is a tradition to make offerings of the food that they usually eat. So the very first portion of your breakfast, lunch, dinner that they put on the altar, in Kalmyk they call deja. Deja is the very first portion that you put on the food. One very misconception that people have, specifically in the traditional republics like Burya, Tuvan, Kalmykia, they think the only food that they can put on the altar is only traditional food, and that is not right. It can be any food. It can be cookies. It can be candy. It can be chocolate. It can be fruit. It can be anything. So it can be cake as well. So here many people think that we are only allowed to put tsa and borsik and nothing else. But that's not true. Right nowadays, we're eating different kinds of food. Any type of food we make as an offering, so that is okay. So in this case, I have already pre-arranged. So here, this is the very first, portion of the Kalmyk tsa that was made today. So here, we make this offering. And here we have a set of fruit offerings that was brought. So when we bring it home, we the very first portion of that fruit that we place in a plate, and we place it as an offering. And that is how you set up your altar. So at the end of the day, offerings are done in the morning. As the earlier you do it, the better it is. You can still make the offerings mid-morning, late morning. It doesn't matter. But removing of the offerings should be done before sunset. So it could be done in the afternoon, it could be done in the evening, as long as you do it before sunset. So therefore here in this case, we have made the offerings in the morning, so we can remove that. Here we made the offerings of the food, so we can remove that. Now when we are removing the offerings, as I explained to you, when we make the offerings, we go from our left towards the right. When we remove it from the right side, going backwards. So therefore you just, and here in this case, I just simply pour the water back into the pot, and I stack the bowls. In here, I just simply wipe them. I wipe them. The water that was just removed, it could be used, you could flower your plants, you could pour the water into your trees, plants, anywhere outside, somewhere clean. Don't do it, don't flush it down the toilet, or try not to just pour it somewhere in a polluted area. So therefore here we are doing the, after we're done here, the cups, the bowls that are here, we simply turn it upside down until tomorrow morning. Of course, in this video, just because I gave the explanation, it seems a little bit longer. But when you do it in the morning, it just takes just about 5 minutes, maybe less, to make the offerings. It doesn't take much of your time. So once you get into a habit, make the offerings, light the incense, and light the candle. And it is simple as that. So hopefully this presentation is very useful to you. And the next one is I'm going to show you how to do what we call the 8 auspicious offerings. Thank you.
Дорогие друзья, в год благодарности Его Святейшеству Далай-ламы XIV, приуроченный к 85-летию его рождения, в рамках реализации проекта Центрального Хурула Калмыкии «Золотая обитель Будды Шакьямуни», сокровищница духовного наследия калмыцкого народа, издан альбом «Далай-лама в Калмыкии» от 3 его визитов в нашу республику. Продажа данного издания производится в Калмыкии в Центральном Хуруле. Средства от реализации альбома будут направлены на издание сутры «Алтын керыл», калмыцкий и русский переводы.